Hello, everyone. So today I'm here with Ashley. Welcome back to the channel, Ashley.
Oh, thanks for having me.
No problem. And today we're going to talk about Saint Expedite. Now, neither me or Ashley are experts on Saint Expedite, but we are both fascinated by him and have worked with him in recent months. So we decided to just do a kind of a brief video about Saint Expedite and the kind of saint that he is, and really the stories behind him as well. So, first of all, I would highly recommend this book that I have right here. It's The Conjurer's Guide to Saint Expedite by Denise M. Alvarado. And there you go. It's very useful when getting in touch with Saint Expedite, and there's a lot of information in here. So the basic story behind Saint Expedite is that he was a Roman centurion in an Armenian legion during the purges of Diocletian, Roman emperor. Now, this Roman emperor wanted all the Roman legionaries to make sacrifices to the gods, but this one completely Christian Armenian legion did not want to do that for obvious reasons. They couldn't break their vow of being Christian, and they were fighting Germans, I think, at the time. So when this proclamation was made that everybody in the legion had to make sacrifice to the gods, or this army, this one legion split off from the army and went out into a field and knelt and prayed to God. And then eventually, well, the story goes that they prayed for rain because they were dying of thirst, and the rest of the army was also dying of thirst. And it was only when the Christian Legion, the Armenian Legion, Christian Armenian Legion, went out and prayed and knelt before God that it actually started raining, and they were able to fill their helmets with water and drink it, so that they didn't die of thirst and were able to defeat the Germans. The German, at the time, German horde, I guess you could say, barbarians. But so shortly after that, during the purge of Diocletian, Saint Expedite was a centurion, and he would not make sacrifices to the gods, so he was beheaded, along with a number of other legionaries that were in that legion, if not the whole legion itself. I can't really find a lot of detail about the whole legion, but he was definitely beheaded as a result of him not willing to make sacrifices to the gods. So kind of showing commitment there. Is there anything you want to add to the story, Ashley, before we kind of continue on?
So there's like a legend of a crow that kept on harassing him, and it was basically the devil took the form of a crow, and he was saying like, tomorrow, like convert tomorrow, and then he stomps out the crow and basically converted that day, is how the legend goes. That's one of his symbols.
Yeah, so, before this purge where he got beheaded, he decided to convert to Christianity because he wasn't born Christian. And the devil took the form of a crow, and in its beak, one of the symbols is the word on a piece of paper, the Latin word for tomorrow. But on the cross that Saint Expedite holds, it says today, which is Hodi, or Hodai, or something like that. I'm not really good with Latin, but so
either Hodi or Hodi.
Yeah, and so he's holding this cross with that on it, which means today, and then he stomps the devil in the form of a crow that says tomorrow, that has the paper that says tomorrow in its beak. That's a very powerful dichotomy, even within the kind of, in most of his images that are presented. There's that dichotomy with the crow and the cross that he's holding. Of course, he also usually is depicted with palm leaves, maybe just one long palm leaf. And I'm not really sure how that's specific to Saint Expedite. I think that it does remind me of the story of Jesus Christ, where people laid down palm leaves as he was either entering or exiting Jerusalem. But it's still a very, I guess you could say, holy symbol for Christians. At any rate, there's a lot of Christian background to this particular, saint, of course. But there are people in other traditions that worship him and work with him that aren't Christian. Yet you can use a Christian prayer like Our Father and Hail Mary, which you're supposed to say one for each when you're asking him for something, that anybody can say, and that empowers that connection with that saint. Maybe you'd like to go into a few of the offerings that he likes, Ashley. Would you like to say some of the offerings he likes?
Yeah, so Saint Expedite likes pound cake. A lot of people say he specifically likes Sara Lee pound cake, but obviously that's not
That's a New
a
Orleans
super.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a newer thing within like maybe the last 50, whenever Sara Lee actually became a company. So also some people say nickels, other people say pennies. You offer that, especially after he's done the deed that you've asked him to do, the petition. Once he's met the requirements of the petition, you're supposed to be pretty much prepared to leave his offering right away, because he's so much about speed and all that. You kind of have to have it ready. So he doesn't care even if you just offer him a rose. You can offer him a rose in one of his colors, which would be red specifically, or gold, or green. Those are the ones that, I mean, you can't find a green. But yeah, offerings that have to do with those colors. What else? He likes water. You're supposed to always keep water on his altar. So.
Yeah. And, okay, so we're going into some basic info from the book that I just showed. But his feast day is April 19th. And usually he likes offerings even more, but you can offer it to him at any time on the 19th of every month. He was canonized as a saint and a martyr, but in the 1960s, 1950s, the Catholic Church actually removed his saint status, which is really weird. Like, they usually don't do that, but they removed his saint status, and I think that my idea as to why they did that is because he was willing to, or he just produced results for people so quickly that people relied less on priests. That's just my own suspicion. That's something that I think. I didn't really get that from anywhere, but I think that go ahead.
Oh no, you can continue, but I have something to say after you're done.
No, go ahead, because I'm about to go into the different general details.
Okay, my belief is, like, they've had a few different, like, I think it was hard for them to pinpoint the historical evidence to his existence.
That's
so
what they say, yeah.
I think that was part of it, but also I think since he's tied into, like, a lot of folk magic traditions, I think the Catholic Church probably thought that he was maybe pulling people into more of the folk magic and taking them away from the traditional Orthodox Church. So
that makes sense. It seems like he's willing to help you with a wide range of things, and he's accepts a wide range of offerings. But it does say in other places, not just this book, that if you say that you're gonna give him something, you should give it to him exactly when you said you were gonna give it to him. And I would say, even if you don't think that the service has been rendered, you still give him that offering, because he will be expecting it. Just like he produces effect in your life very quickly. Even if you don't see the effect, I would highly recommend that you give him the offering that you promised him when you promised it to him. This is the design of the shrine that you should kind of have. It's kind of hard to see it with the lighting that I have, but so you want the candle kind of at the point of the triangle. You want the bell kind of at the bottom, and then to the right you want the image of Saint Expedite, or the statue, and then to the left you want the glass of water. So I hope that people can see that. And rainwater is preferable, of course, but so there's a very basic design for the altar. But what I found interesting, which I haven't found with other saints, is that when you have an image of Saint Expedite that you're using, when you started working, you turn that image upside down, whether it be a picture or a statue, you turn it upside down. And you basically put whenever that is fulfilled, or whenever you basically said, okay, this is the time to stop the work, you turn it right side up. and then that's when you make your offerings usually. But I like to make offerings to spirits, saints, gods, what have you, before they actually do something to kind of, kind of bring them in and basically say, I acknowledge that you have the power to do this, and I trust that you'll do it, so I'm going to offer something to you, which is not something that's always recommended because there's no incentive. This is what a lot of people say, but I like to make an offering when I first place a working or ask for something to happen, and then also after, because I think that really solidifies the whole relationship, the whole working, and I think that it puts you on a better ground with spirits and gods. So,
I do the same thing. I usually put the offering out right away, and then I'll I'll like make an oath that I'll put something else out after.
Yeah, definitely.
Petition has been granted.
And when working with a lot of these different beings, we have to understand that Saint Expedite, he might have been a Christian himself when he was alive. He could be an egregori. Some saints seem to be egregori, where they exist and their power exists purely through the faith that they do exist, or the belief that they do exist. So I don't think that Saint Expedite is necessarily that, but even saints that maybe didn't even exist, they do have power now because of all this belief in their existence. And I think that certain beliefs and practices really shape a saint like Saint Expedite as the centuries move forward. So like when he died, I don't think he's nearly the same thing as he is now, as people started working with him and started like doing this or that. There are certain trends working with him as a saint.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you think about it, if your soul is on one level when you pass over onto the other side, and then over hundreds of years or close to 1,000 years, people are working with you, it seems like your soul would still evolve on the other side,
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's strange because I just started realizing the nature of saints, and they're not necessarily aligned with just Christianity. I just started realizing that about a year ago, I think. I always kind of assumed that if there's a saint in Christianity, that people who weren't Christian couldn't work with them. But I'm starting to realize there's a lot of magic connected to saints, and they are spirits that will and can work with anybody. And even if you say an Our Father or Hail Mary, even those prayers can be used by people who aren't Christians to empower a working, because there's so much power behind them at this point. That's something that I think religions did by accident sometimes. Like they placed these possibilities of these prayers, and then it's like a power source for anybody who wants to use them. When he became a spirit and a saint, and people started working with him, I imagine that he did transform and evolve, like you said. Go ahead.
I was going to say that when I work with a lot of saints and Christian deities, I look at it a lot like if I were working with just a different pantheon. I just use them for the same purposes I would use any pantheon that I'm working with. I don't use Mary, but when I interact with Mary, I interact with her a lot like I would Astarte or Venus or any mother goddess also.
That makes sense. Yeah, like it's a dynamic relationship that you have, and it's hard to really plaster what something is onto it, because we're constantly caught up in this. We're constantly caught up in duality. Like, this is one thing, that is something else, and we try to categorize things as human beings. So that limits us a lot of the time when we're working with anything. So it's very important to downsize our expectations when working with beings like saints, like spirits, like gods. Otherwise, we're putting them into a box where they can't function. They can't even work for us at all, no matter what sacrifices we provide. I'm trying to find this story that was told about Saint Expedite. Anyway, there's a story in this book that I'll say it briefly. I'm not going to give all the details, but this man, somebody came to his door, asked for a cup of water. He's like, okay, I'll go get you a cup of water. I'm not going to deny you a cup of water. He comes back with a cup of water, gives it to him. He drinks it, and then this guy's just staring in his eyes the whole time. And he thought that was kind of weird. And then he said, okay, go inside and get all the money that you have and bring it to me. And for some reason, because it was magic, he just felt like he couldn't deny it. So he got all the money and gave it to him. And as that guy broke eye contact after he got the money, he started walking away. And then slowly, as he was walking away, the guy realized, like, he's just robbed me through magic. So he called upon Saint Expedite right then, right there. He's like, Saint Expedite, like, stop this guy. And he said, this random board from a building just fell, like, it was like flung from a building onto this guy's head. And the guy was knocked out cold. He didn't die, but he was knocked out cold. And then this guy was able to go get his money back. And he's like, that's when I knew Saint Expedite really had my back. So he went to Saint Expedite's shrine and, lit a candle for him. And lighting a candle, putting oil on a candle is a really great offering for a number of different beings. Like, you're offering the oil, you're offering the candle. Food is really good. Change is actually very valuable because of the amount of hands it goes through, and the energy that is attached to that change because it's been used so much. So the things that we just take for granted and the things that are so simple to just offer to these different beings, they're often imagined as being lesser than those beings reckon they are, because those beings are like, they love these offerings. You just have to know that they love these offerings, because we live in this very solid materialistic world that values things, I guess you can say, luxuries that are much higher than it is required for an offering. But really, offerings can be very simple. It's all about intention. It's all about what you're thinking, why you're offering it, and if you're being sincere about it. So that's all very true with Saint Expedite. And once again, we're just kind of amateurs with Saint Expedite. We're not experts. We'd love to hear your comments in the comment section below. If you have any more experiences than us, or you have more knowledge than us, feel free to shoot down in the comment section below. Is there any way you'd like to, as far as Saint Expedite, Ashley, is there any, experience or kind of, extra detail you want to share about Saint Expedite before we close off this video?
I'd say, be careful of, worrying about, so it's really important to be clear in your petitions. But I worked with one client, and he was so afraid of repercussions of working with Saint Expedite that he actually manifested, he hurt his ankle the next day. And I was like, I have no idea why. I'll leave him anonymous. But I was like, I have no idea why that would have happened, except for you were afraid of it, because he connected him with the Loa, with Baron Samedi and everything. So we need to be aware of not putting too much energy into fear when we're working with these.
Definitely.
Clear.
Go ahead. What did you say?
I was saying, be clear on the petition, because you want to be really clear on the petition, but don't put too much fear when you're working with the saints.
Definitely. I totally back that. I would like to say that briefly. I kind of know who you're talking about, so I'm not going to mention that story, but. I did petition Saint Expedite for getting money, but actually through doing spiritual work for somebody and then getting money through that. And then a few days later, I got somebody who is a really big fan of my videos. They're like, hey, I'm going to send you $50, because I just love your stuff so much. I'm like, hey, you don't have to do that. But she's like, no, I want to. I want to send you money because I like to support your channel. I'm like, okay, that's amazing. So after 3 days after I asked Saint Expedite to provide money for spiritual work, it happened. So we both kind of have proofs for how he works and him responding quickly.
I was once gifted I think it was $2,500 unexpectedly. And it came from a really unlikely source. I put out the petition, and then I found out that
was it through Saint Expedite, or was it?
Yeah, actually. And my dad had been putting $25 away in an account for child support from the time I was 10 or 14, whatever the math would be. But anyway, all the way up until then, and my mom had not known about this account, and then it ended up being $2,500, and my mom was like, "Oh wow. This money's just been there waiting for you this whole time." And it was right before
That's
Christmas.
Amazing.
And
Yeah, that's amazing. So, yeah, we kind of have proofs for these things for, Saint Expedite working in our lives. At any rate, I want to thank you, Ashley, for joining me on this video.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. And, once again, put down any questions or comments in the comments below. And I hope to see all of you on the channel in the future.